Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen with the Makers of Minnesota. I am known for suggesting local products and highlighting Minnesota companies through my networks. I utilize my personal assets with stephaniesdish.com and the Makers of Minnesota podcast to help amplify brands. If you'd like to take that experience a little bit further, I would love to help you. The way we can do that is through social media management, where I help you with your Facebook and your Instagram posts. So many of the entrepreneurs that I know just hate doing social media, and I love it. I can also help you with PR, publicity, getting the word out about your products. Maybe you need some recipe development, or maybe you need someone that can help you find some influencers that will actually move the needle on getting your product bought. You can find me at shansenmarketing@gmail.com. That's shansenmarketing@gmail.com if you want to explore ways to amplify your brand in 2021. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Makers of Minnesota, where we talk to cool people doing cool things. I'm Stephanie Hansen, and I'm here with Laura Mumm, and she has a company called Sota Cracklers. And I am looking at her because we're Zooming, of course. And I know Laura is a mom because we had to schedule during the window that the kids are down. And I'm looking at the Zoom, and she's got toys in her living room. And Laura, I cannot wait to talk to you because you are someone that your whole stuff has changed during the pandemic, like your whole business, because you're having kids at home. What does an average day look like as an entrepreneur?
You know, it's a lot of squeezing in work wherever you can, which is not ideal. And then it's also working after they go to bed, for sure. I mean, I think that was kind of the same before the pandemic.
Sure.
You know, the big thing that was a change for me was that I had a baby right at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, I had a baby, and then I was reading about the pandemic in Italy and China while I was in the hospital. And then a few weeks later, the preschools closed, all the schools closed. So all of a sudden I had a newborn and a 3-year-old at the time at home. And I was on maternity leave, which was a planned maternity leave. So all the stores that I wholesale with had either put in large orders prior to my maternity leave, which was great, or they were planning to do big orders, right when I returned. So I was actually about to come back after 4 weeks of maternity leave, and then all the shutdowns happened. And so I think all but one store canceled their orders, or postponed their orders rather. So all of a sudden, I hadn't had any income for like 4 weeks basically. And I was like, oh, okay. My biggest revenue stream shut down. Ironically, the store that kept their order was for the airport, the Minneapolis St. Paul airport. They have me at 2 stores, which is wonderful. And they wanted to keep going, at that time. And they're still with us. It's just a little slower, obviously. And so, so that kind of leads into the big pivot of adjusting to the pandemic, which was, initially we're thinking, oh, how long could this last? What, like 2-3 weeks? We'll be fine when we come back after a month or something. And then, the stores were still shut down. And I decided I'm going to have to start selling these online.
So you're known for these candles that crackle. Candles, there you go. They're cute. They're in these jars. Candles are a company, there's a high markup, and fragrance is really an important part of it. Can you tell me how you got into the candle making business? And then we'll kind of circle back to what it looks like today.
Sure. Yeah. Prior to doing this business, I've been in business for myself for more than a decade, doing whatever. This was not my first business. I owned a tailor shop. I used to do a lot of sewn goods in terms of crafting, retail type products. And then after my first daughter was born, that was just not incorporating into motherhood at all. Scissors, pins, needles, wasn't
the handwork. Yeah.
And the handwork. And it was just really time consuming. And I knew that I needed to kind of form a new business that would work for what my new lifestyle was. And that meant I knew I only wanted to wholesale. and not be shipping out little, ones and twosie orders. And I knew that I wanted something that I could do in batches. And I really fell in love with the idea of doing candles. I had been kind of watching some other candle makers and stuff online and looking at the process. And, I did my due diligence research and everything too. And I particularly was romanced by this idea of the wooden wick and as something really unique. And I had really never seen that. I certainly had never seen it in a store. And so at that time I was only seeing it online. And so I really wanted to try it out. I contacted 2 different stores that I had relationships with selling. And I said, well, I'm thinking about switching to candles and would you be willing to put these on your shelves if I do this? And they said, yep, we definitely try it out. And that was enough to just get started. So then you have the process of, just creating your business and the branding surrounding it. And I loved the idea of doing something Minnesota because I'm born and raised in Minnesota. I've actually only lived in Minnesota. I've traveled, but I've only lived here. And so I really liked that idea, although that does, from a business standpoint, it does kind of limit my territory to Minnesota, or maybe Western Wisconsin or Eastern Wisconsin. Anyway, Western Wisconsin. Yeah. So anyway, I started doing these candles and they went well. And some of my earliest scents still remain to be my most popular scents. And I think people have really fallen in love with the fact that they're very evocative of what it's like to live in Minnesota. My most popular scent is the Northwoods scent, and it's a balsam pine with a little Fraser fir and a little clove. And it takes you to the woods. It reminds you of going on a hike. Another one is Lake Superior Splash. Another one is Gooseberry Falls, which is, I feel like I don't talk about that one enough, but it's a really fabulous scent. It's gooseberry and then cedar. And so I did shows the first couple until the pandemic, basically. Sure. I was also doing shows. So I had basically 2 places that I was selling the candles, wholesale to stores.
Is it the wooden wick that makes the crackle?
Yeah. Yep. So it's the wood that crackles, just it's like a little mini fireplace, and it creates kind of a crackle sizzle sound. The candles they're soy candles, so they burn very clean. The soy wax is Midwest grown soybeans. So and the wicks are sustainably sourced. There's a reforestry program that the wick supplier works with.
Sure.
So I wanted to be able to feel good about the product itself in that regard too. The feedback I hear from customers when I do shows and I get that really valuable, wonderful customer feedback is just that the interpretation of the fragrances is interesting and unique. And they often use the word accurate, which I think is the most flattering thing they could say. They say, oh, that's really accurate. It really smells like a bonfire. Or,
right.
I have one called Backyard Bonfire that people love. Even, holiday season, they're saying that too. So
I do love the idea that you were prepared in some respects by your serial entrepreneurism, because you could reach out to existing retail relationships. It gave you, I think, a leg up, and might explain why you're still here a year later in the pandemic and why you made the decision to pivot to online sales. When did you know you had to do online sales? Because I think it's interesting that you didn't want to ship onesie twosies. I totally get that. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I got to ship onesie twosie.
Yeah, that was a tough decision. Before I was doing Sota Cracklers, I used to sell stuff on Etsy, and that was fine when I didn't have kids because I could run to the post office and all that. But it's an enormous amount of work to pack, tons of orders, individual orders. And it's a huge difference because I want everything that I do with this business to be top notch. And so when I to online sales was when basically my revenue streams completely dried up and were shut down. So I was selling to stores, and at the time when the pandemic started, I probably had about 25 different stores that I retail to, or wholesale to rather. And all of a sudden that wasn't happening. And then I would also do in-person shows, and those were totally off the table as well. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? The only thing left is to do online. And to kind of help alleviate the onesie twosie problem, I decided to sell my candles in themed sets. most of the time at shows, customers really weren't buying a single candle anyway. They like to buy maybe 3 or so, or even more.
Yeah.
So I did sets of 3 4-ounce candles or 2 8-ounce candles. And that was really deliberate so that they could both ship in the same size box, because you have to think of logistics too. It has to be well thought out in terms of how much packaging do I have space to store, or how is the postage going to work out, and how does that transfer to the customer, and what are they willing to pay in shipping, and versus what am I eating and my shipping cost. So
yep. And free shipping is kind of a minimum expectation for lots of people, isn't it?
Yeah, we're really used to free shipping. Like, I'm no different. Like, I have my Amazon Prime account, I definitely couldn't offer completely free shipping because candles are heavy. They're candles in glass jars. Each set costs over $7 to ship, but I actually charge my customer $3 per box. I just decided to do a flat rate, $3 per box charge, even though they cost more than that. And that's okay. I wanted the packaging to be great, and I wanted it to be where you get this real treat in the mail. And
yeah.
Peel off that beautiful kind of packaging tape.
Yeah. Candles are, I don't want to say a luxury item necessarily, but it's a little luxury that isn't something that a lot of people maybe buy for themselves. It's more of a gift item. And I started buying candles for myself, but I always felt a little like dangerous when I did it, And
especially if you're buying a candle that's not like a $3 candle from the Target bullseye spot.
Right.
When you're buying a $10 or an $18 candle, that is kind of a luxury item, but it is an affordable luxury. And that was something that also surprised me during the pandemic, was that I thought, oh my God, everybody's getting furloughed and laid off, and who's going to still be buying these? And turns out a lot of people, even people that, maybe friends, it isn't an affordable luxury. And I think we all just had so much taken away from us at the start of the pandemic. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do our restaurants or do the things that we love to do. And the best thing we could do is make our homes cozy and give ourselves a little TLC and some self-care. And lighting a really nice candle can definitely give you a little sense of peace back.
Can I ask you a mom question?
Sure.
I have wondered, I have a brother that had a baby right as the pandemic started as well. And my neighbor just had a baby too. Her baby is, I think, about a year. And I just wonder what it's like to have children that are little in this pandemic. And do you worry like, okay, my neighbor, the kid has never seen a Target. It's never really seen people, and her other daughter is, I think, 4. And, there's no preschool. And as a mom, do you worry about like what they're missing in terms of the interaction?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've worried about that. My daughter now is at a preschool. She started back at preschool in the fall, and, she's in a small class of 8 kids, and they're masked. Everybody's masked. And it's been such a godsend to have her back. And it's only, it's 3 half days a week. It's just a few hours, but to get those few hours, I couldn't be doing this podcast if she was not at school right now.
Right.
And then with the baby, we really worried about that lack of socializing, because I feel terrible for this kid, this poor boy. He has never gone to a story time at the library. He has never seen another baby in person, except for, across the street in a stroller or something, at quite a distance. He's never gotten to like sit face to face with another baby like the way you would normally do with little ones. I took him to the pet store recently to get a goldfish for my daughter, and he was like jacked. He was like all flirty with the clerks, like just all smiles. He was looking all around, like, and to see the few animals in the cage, a hamster and like a bird, it was the closest he's going to get to going to the zoo.
Right.
So we've definitely worried about those things. The thought that brings me back down to kind of reality and realizing that I don't need to worry too much about it is I this is really silly, but I think about Little House on the Prairie, and I think about how the Ingalls family lived in the middle of nowhere in their little cabin, and they had the kids, and they did not have neighbors, and people used to live without a lot of socializing. People used to live much more isolated, and we didn't have all those things, and they did not turn out weird.
Yes.
People are well balanced,
And it's just something we're not used to. I was wondering, I've always wanted to ask my neighbor, when she sees me, she scurries back inside because she's so nervous. And I've always thought, gosh, that must be so hard. And I just moved into a new house in October, and I know one person. Yeah,
we wish we could get to know our neighbors a little bit more. Another parenting thing, we did get new neighbors next door, and there's a fence between our houses, and they have kids, and our daughter and one of their daughters became friends through the fence, not being able to play with each other, but they would pass little drawings and stuff through the fence to each other for months, and we just didn't feel okay enough about them having even an outdoor play date until really recently. We'd gotten through the holiday season, cases are going down. We felt really good comfortable with the safety, and we talked to the parents and stuff. And so they got to have their first outdoor backyard play date. And you could just tell for both kids, it was the best thing ever to be able to play with another kid.
So
beautiful, but heartbreaking. So
yeah, I can imagine. What do you pivot to the online sales, and a lot of entrepreneurs I had to go online, but then there's the challenge of how do you get your customers to go online, right? Because just because you have a great website doesn't mean anyone finds it. So then marketing becomes a big play. Are you a big social media marketer, or how are you getting people to the website?
So the main social media that I do is Instagram. It's very conducive for a product-based business because it's photos. It's all photos, and it's creating that romance and that vibe around your product. And so, link to website and profile is one, and just really constantly posting that hey, we're selling online. And thankfully, I've been in business for over 3 years when the pandemic hit. So I'd already started to have some devotees that were coming back. I still didn't know if anybody really would go to the website and purchase. So the day that I kind of turned everything on and it went live, I was surprised and thrilled to get 7 orders that day. Yeah. And so, we're in January now. This is not high candle season. I might have some days where I don't get any orders. I might have some days where I get 2. I might have some days where I get 8. I don't like to do a lot of promotions. I don't like to train the customer to expect a coupon the way Bed Bath & Beyond does.
Right.
If you buy something from Bed Bath & Beyond without that 20% off coupon, you're like a sucker.
Yep.
And I don't care for that style of doing business. I do, but during the holiday season, I also did really want to make it a focus that because we weren't getting together with our loved ones, that you could very easily send them a gift that would be packaged in a way that it was like a gift. And so I did video. I have a couple of videos that I made, unboxing videos where they could see exactly how, their friend might open it and see how beautifully packaged it was. I tried to make it very easy for people where, for free, we will include a little handwritten gift note. Mostly, just used Instagram. And I do post on Facebook too, but it's not really a primary way of doing things.
Have you started Instagram shopping yet?
I have not. And it's mostly because with the kids, it's really hard to sit down and focus on learning something new. So that's one. It's kind of on the back burner that I might work on that later, but it hasn't really been a problem. And the other thing is that because the online retail is not my ideal way to operate, I really, really do want my customers to be purchasing from local brick and mortar shops. If they're able to go out, mask up safely, get to the stores, I would much rather that people buy my candles at one of their nearest retailer, brick and mortar shop, because these stores are great. Over the past several years, I've established really great relationships with the buyers, and even like the largest stores, like they're just regular people. They're just like your neighbor, and supporting these brick and mortar shops is so important too. And
Where
some
are
people
of the
feel like
stores
they want to buy directly from me, but if you can get out to your brick and mortar retailer, please shop that way.
Where can people find you at brick and mortar?
Sota Clothing Co. in St. Louis Park, the General Store in Minnetonka, I Like You in Minneapolis and St. Paul. There's a lot in greater Minnesota too. There's some like Zenith bookstore in Duluth. I think let's see, who's recently put an order in? Leader in Cambridge.
Sure.
There's a lot of stores, and my website has a list of all the stockists. So that's been another thing, is that I've just tried to encourage customers to go to the website, see where it is. And also I've been trying to update customers via the Instagram and social media of, there's a new restock happening at, store XYZ. So head over, because the candles do actually sell out relatively quickly. And so some people, especially if they're looking for a particular scent, like they do head to a store based on an Instagram post.
I'm excited to talk to you today. You and I have circled the wagon a little bit, so it's good to finally be able to feature you on the podcast. Thanks for sharing, Laura. Thanks for sharing some of your personal story too. I really admire, and we're reading a lot of horrifying statistics about a lot of women that have been sort of pushed out of the workforce because they're at home. Yeah. And I just love that you're scrappy and hanging in there, because I do think we're within the home stretch here, and I'm glad that you've made it this far. And I look forward to running into you at some retailer stocking your shelves or some market, right?
Yeah. And I look forward to getting back to doing those in-person shows when it's safe to do so. Not until then, of course, but yeah. And as far as women getting, pushed out of the workforce, that is absolutely a concern. And I definitely consider myself lucky, because I was already kind of working from home and doing the double duty of the childcare. And so, challenging though it has been, it has been reasonable to handle. So
yeah. Well, thank you. It is Sota Cracklers, and I will put a link in the show notes so that people can find them. And I'll also be putting you on our Facebook and our Instagram, and people should buy candles because they're lovely. Her scents are great, and it's a little luxury.
Thank you very much for having me.
Laura. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.